A common thread exists in all three texts of The Heart of Redness, The Last One Woman, and Myal. The thread is the connection the books share of spiritual, supernatural, and magical events. These stories may appear magical to outsiders, but it's a way of life and a representation of truth in African and Jamaican societies. These stories tell the impact colonialism had in splitting communities to traditionalism versus modernism, of unapologetically loud and spiritual women being placed in mental asylums, and the psychological and mental trauma of having your culture and identity stolen. Most importantly, it is a story of reclaiming back power, as Webb writes, which can be used in all the three texts. Through the use of counter colonial strategies, Myal demonstrates a rejection of the recitation of Western text in all its manifestations and explores a technology of restitution and reclamation, a reintegration of mind and body. Both Pugetos in the Heart of Redness are shown to be spiritual, supernatural, and magical. Spirituality is presented in their belief of their ancestors, of Tikwa, who they believe created humanity. They practice their beliefs and spirituality by placing stones on Haiti Abib's cane, son of Qitwa. Our interpretation of this message is that African spirituality exists. Western religions such as Christianity are not the only forms of spirituality that exist and are not the only right ways to acknowledge higher beings or powers. African communities have had their own legitimate beliefs and spirituality for many years. The magical and supernatural elements show up in past Bukezos knowing the language of the stars, which says guided them to safety during the cattle season, both riding reinless on Tlatla the horse, who knew where to go without guidance. Present Bukezos magical, supernatural, and spiritual ability connects her intimately to the land and especially indigenous plants. The main message here is that colonialism saw African spirituality and knowledge, that is traditionalism, as backwards or uncultured, which provided a reason to colonize the uneducated masses. To be modern, you needed to be civilized and educated, whereas traditionalism and spirituality were associated with something bad or labeled as voodoo or other. Bugeto's knowledge about the land and plants, her being the voice of reason about the casino bringing destruction to the community, shows the abstract nature of indigenous education, which is frowned upon in Western culture and provides an alternative and equally important view to Western education.
This is a story of Adaman, who is born in one of Jamaica's last Lepa colonies. Spirituality in the last one of women represents a special gift to everybody from God. Adamin was given warning as the highest gift of the power to protect, inspire, and terrify. Adamin has a magical power to state what is going to happen in the near future. When Adamin received warning messages, God jumps into her body. Once Adamin is imparted by God, Adamin transforms from a woman like everyone else to the one woman. She cries out suddenly. Her cry enters people's blood like a freezing. Her cry is warrant, storm, and hurricane and flood, earthquake. Spirituality is the center of the Caribbean culture, so it is a cultural identity for them. This phenomena is definitely supernatural. During colonization, syncretic Caribbean cosmologies that accept the presence of spirits, powers, and insights as an integral part of life were intentionally removed as untrue beliefs. Warning was considered as a kind of mental illness in England. Warning only going to get you in trouble here. Warning, only going to make the nurse drop down your hand. Warning, only going to get you the electric shock. When you don't talk, Mr. Doctor say you're not cooperating. When you do talk, all you hear from him is delusions and vision of grandeur and hallucination. In other words, Western culture refused anything unrelated to their culture or identity, such as magical spirituality in Jamaica as otherness, and replaced it with enlightened Western culture. In this world, there are lots of different culture and knowledge. Even if it sounds hard to understand different cultures, we should attempt to know and respect them.
In Myal, spirituality is presented through Myalism, an Afro-Jamaican practice involving ritual dances and healing practices. Ella's experience abroad was one that left her zombified, separated from her black culture, separated from her spirituality, separated from the parts of herself that allowed her to think, separated from what she learned growing up. Due to this, it made her a puppet as she was controlled by someone else, in this case, her white husband, Selwyn. An aspect that contributed to Ella being zombified was cultural appropriation by Selwyn, who produced a play called Caribbean Nights and Day where he made her character white. This was not a true reflection of who she was. He also used aspects of Ella's life, the stories she told for his play, with no interest in understanding it and no regard for the significance of it. Additionally, he added and removed what he wanted to. Thus, the play was not a true reflection of Ella's life and her black culture. This shows how colonizers are able to exert power over individuals and rid them of their culture, leaving them empty and zombified. Upon her return to Jamaica, it was a communal effort to heal Ella from her state of zombification through Myalism in order to rid her of the evil, the colonial oppression, and her overall experience abroad. Thus, this allowed her to reestablish herself, reestablish her black culture, and reestablish her spirituality. Myalism serves not only as a source of healing but also as a way to resist colonial forces. Additionally, the communal effort showed that working together can overcome challenges.
Connection to the spiritual has been a consistent through line in all three novels we've discussed here, and the reason for that is because in these particular Jamaican and Hosa narratives, the present cannot exist without the continued traditions of the past and the weight of the history of colonization. This traditional spirituality is something that the process of colonization attempted to destroy, framing it as backwards or savage, and later using the language of clinical psychology and criminal justice to delegitimize and stifle important, self-evident truths to these people's lives. The stories that Nda, Miller, and Broadber are telling through their work cannot be told without in some way incorporating the characters' culturally specific beliefs. Trying to do so would flatten the narratives into something simple, digestible, and tame, not for the benefit of the people being represented through the sharing of these stories, but for the type of reader who is unwilling to engage with multiple truths, the last people who should be catered to in this case. The connection with the spiritual or supernatural is sacred in the way that Chelsea Vowell stresses in her article, What is Cultural Appropriation? It is important and meaningful in specific ways.
It is a source of strength and pride to Adamine, a source of regret and embarrassment to Oliswa, and to the people of Grovetown, a way to protect themselves and the future generations against spiritual warfare. In exploring the relationship characters have with spirituality, and the way their culture dictates that relationship allows for a multifaceted understanding of the world. It is not wholly good or entirely bad either, it simply is, and that is more important to understand than trying to decide, especially as an outsider, what is true and what is made up. The Warner people is still here, Mama. We is still here. Seers, prophets, forecasters of earthquakes. We is here, but things is different now. We take the pencils down from behind our ears, and now we is writing. We've been writing one whole heap of books. And guess what, Mama? There is people who go into bookshops, and they buy the things we write, and they put them on their shelves. And plenty times they don't know that all these things they've been reading was not no novel, was not no poem, was not no history book. It was a simple warning. Mama, plenty of people in this world have ears, but they don't know how to hear, and plenty of them have eyes, but they don't know how to see.